Hi, what's up, man?
How are you doing?
Doing good.
We don't exactly need to pretend like we haven't been talking. I mean, we've been talking. We always rush to catch up because we like each other.
Yeah, I've just been, trying to survive this insane heat wave that we get
Uh,
every summer. It seems
Dude.
like it's worse this summer. So,
Well, Blake, you are a special guest for me because you are a Texan and you get it. You understand the plight of the Texan that it is fucking hot.
yeah, that's putting it lightly.
It's ridiculous, man. It's like
Hot is one way to describe it.
every summer I'm like, why the fuck do I do this again?
Yeah,
Um anyway,
that's why
anyway.
you're in bed so you can leave, and
Well,
you don't have.
exactly.
Yeah, you got to
You
have a
know,
way out.
I want to start with I Mike Gitter, the celebrated, famed legend that is Mike Gitter from Century Media Records, but from Triple X Fanzine, Mr. Mike Gitter. He introduced me to you guys, to your band Power Trip, your wonderful band Power Trip. One South by Southwest, he was like, "Hey man, you got to come see this band. They're a thrash band, and they sound like." He listed, all the bands, and he was like, "And they're from Dallas," and I was like, "No, they're not. You're a fucking liar. I would know what that is because I'm from Dallas." And not, you know, paying much attention to the fact that I had not been in Dallas for quite some time. I'd been in Austin and wasn't really paying attention because I was fucking touring my life away. And I went and saw you guys, was completely blown away. I had to introduce myself to you. And then you and me became friends, and I realized how much I don't know, we have so much in common because we're both guys that got into this music, but we're also both from Texas. And I talked to Jesse Dayton about this as well, who's a rockabilly country guitar player, lives here in town, about how being from Texas was so integral to who we became because we didn't have the ability to align ourselves with some coast. In on the East Coast, you had the death metal scene in Florida, or you had the hardcore scene in New York, and then on the West Coast, you had the skate punk scene and SST and all that stuff that was coming out of Southern California. And San Francisco had the Bay Area thrash scene. You and me didn't have that. We had whatever the fuck we got, and that was punk and that was metal and that was anything counterculture and fast. Do you think that informed you as well?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Texas, it's like in the middle of all that. We're far away from everything, so we have like our own community here in
Yeah.
Texas. I feel like it's weird. I feel like people in Texas, and I mean, I don't know everybody on the East and West Coast. So I'm not saying that they don't have this either, but growing up, I feel like people in Texas were always um, very well versed in music. There was a lot of obviously the punk scene, the hardcore metal, everything. I kind of came up in a scene where people were, putting on festivals with a big melting pot of bands like whether it was Fun Fest or Chaos and Teos or something.
Yeah.
There were always these fests, maybe because of Austin. There's a lot of people in Austin that migrate there and big music heads and stuff. I just feel like there was always a people had a good understanding of music and kind of where it all came from, and there were always, like I said, there were always cool fests that were bringing everybody together and expanding everyone's horizons. So like you could go to a fest in Austin and see Hum and Slayer
Yeah.
and you know
The
Big Boy,
Descendants. And
Descendants, Bad Brains or Cro-Mags and Rival Schools, and like it
yeah.
was just, or even like rappers, like Snoop Dogg would play or something. It's like
Absolutely.
there were always these festivals in Austin and other places in Texas that brought all these kinds of music together, and I think it gave everybody a good base for just musical appreciation,
Sure.
musical instincts, just knowing your shit. So
Absolutely.
um, it's
And
cool.
and and also didn't have the ability of being like the West Coast Fest or the whatever. It's like those festivals. I know which ones you're talking about. They had to take what they can get. You know. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And after I met you, I realized you were a guy that had this thrash metal band, but you also, one of your favorite bands is The Replacements. You're a Beatles fanatic like I am, and I reminded me so much of myself coming up because I was also a guy that was buying thrash metal records when they were coming out in the late 80s and also obsessed with punk rock. But because I don't know if it's because I was from Texas or because of my dad's influence or whatever, I also would listen to, the Beatles' White Album along with, Seven Churches by Possessed. And you seem to be that same guy. And immediately once I kind of figured that out about you, I was like, oh, we're just friends for life. He gets me. He sees me. I see him. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you don't always meet people like that. I feel like it's probably more common now than ever because we have so much access to music. I feel like just in all kinds of music, I feel like the barriers have really been broken down. Like
Sure.
no longer does it really feel like people judge you or there are these rules for what you can and can't be into. I feel like a lot of people into metal probably also appreciate, My Bloody Valentine or something like
Sure.
that. I feel like everyone kind of can listen to everything because you have streaming and all this. Everything's so accessible that I think everything's mixed together a lot. But like you were saying, I mean, it is rare to find people that appreciate some of the older stuff in the same way. Like whether it's like from a song standpoint or just being into pop as much as you're into heavy metal. It's like you don't
Right.
meet those good people all the time, but someone like you're a song, you're a songwriter, you understand that whole thing, and you're in a rock band with melodic, pop sensibility, and then you're also in a metal, so you understand the bigger picture, which I love people that can kind of put it all together like that.
Well, it's all a part of the same thing to me. I couldn't imagine being so limited. But anyway, let's back up a bit. So, who were your guys? Who were like your influences getting started and things like that?
Getting started, well, I mean, I would definitely say there's not like any really cool like any rare type of answer. I mean, like Jimi Hendrix when I was a kid, my dad was like when I was getting guitars and stuff, he was Jimi Hendrix. I mean,
Sure.
when you're a kid especially, it's like even now it's like you just look at him and he looks fucking awesome with a guitar.
Right.
Not only does he look awesome, but he's just like setting it on fire and he's, you know, humping his amp with the guitar. Like there was just all these
Right.
things he's doing. I'm like, I don't know what this guy's doing, but it was pretty amazing. So Jimi Hendrix was a big one. Um, Pete Townsend, like watching videos of the Who with my dad and like
Yep.
he was doing similar things, breaking guitars and uh, like doing his windmills and stuff like that.
He made it
Um,
look dangerous.
yeah, he
Yeah.
he like he kind of attacked it. He attacked the guitar kind of like Jimi Hendrix did, but with more aggression and stuff. So
It's funny because Buzz Osborne said the same two guys first. It was Jimi Hendrix and
that's
Pete
crazy.
Townsend. And
Yeah, they're not
yeah,
super left with answers or anything, but
but it's
uh,
true. But Pete Townsend's a little crazy. I mean, Pete Townsend's always been my guy. He's my favorite. The Who are my
yeah,
favorite band, and he did make you. He looked like a superhero. He made it look dangerous.
yeah, he was like really getting it. So him. I'm trying to think who else. Guitar heroes. Um, from when I was younger, those guys. I mean, I would say probably Eric Clapton too,
Sure.
because I kind of grew up hearing the stuff that he was involved in, the blind faith stuff. You
Yeah.
know, just that was another guy that my dad was kind of putting me on to. My dad introduced me to the Ramones and the Clash pretty early on, so um, that stuff was always really influential, just in terms of like wanting to be in a punk rock band.
Right.
Uh, but
Am I
definitely,
wrong? Am I wrong that your dad was also? I'm sorry to interrupt. Was your dad was also a classic rock guy? Like my
yeah.
dad was. My dad was
He
as well.
wasn't a musician, but he was a music guy. So he's a little older. He kind of missed as in he was a little older by the time metal came out and everything. He was already kind of doing. He's an architect, so he was already in art school, and he was really more so into new wave and jazz and blues and all
Right.
that stuff. So I'd say like Black Sabbath and Kiss and all that sort of went by him. But
Right.
he obviously the Beatles, the Who, all that Neil Young, um, Beach Boys, all that stuff was he loves all that stuff. So I kind of grew up listening to that with him, and that was probably the stuff he was into.
So let me ask you this, and I've always wondered like how people that are your age are into such a specific genre of metal that was happening in the late 80s. Because when I went and saw you guys, it was like seeing Exodus in 1988 or 89. I was like, how are these dudes that are easily 10 years, if not more, younger than me, or 20 years younger than me, are so into this? Like, what was that gateway for you? How did that trajectory happen?
Um, it definitely happened. So we were all into hardcore. Obviously, we were going to hardcore shows all the time, and very very soon after I got into hardcore, I mean, probably around the same time, there were bands in Texas that were doing crossover stuff. So one band was Bitter End, who was doing more of a New York hardcore thing, but there was definitely they were influenced by the crossover bands too. And then Iron Age was huge. Like pretty much when I got into hardcore, they had just put out their first record, and it was total crossover. It was like
Right.
came from the hardcore scene. It could, it was considered hardcore, but it was pretty out there compared to most stuff. So that just got us all diving into all those records that they were inspired by, and that they were putting on and getting us into. So, it was like everything from Nuclear Assault and Exodus to Pentagram to
Sure.
Conformity to Leeway, Killing Time, and Cro-Mags, and
Yeah.
just stuff from all over the New York hardcore and the crossover spectrum, and all the way into thrash. So that was really the reason, that was what got us all into that stuff.
Sure.
Got, like when me and Riley were first talking about starting the band, I remember we connected by talking about, it was like, have you heard Breakdown's Blacklisted EP, which is like a New York hardcore band?
Right.
Yeah, I love that. We were like, okay, we should do a band, and we're, yeah, you like Cro-Mags, Best Wishes, Leeway, Desperate Measures, stuff like that. We were just going back and forth, like, yeah, I love that record, blah blah blah. And then it was like, okay, let's start a band. So I started.
That's great.
Yeah, just started kind of jamming with my best friend, who was like 15 at the time. He couldn't
Yeah.
drive, but I was
Well,
16, and yeah, we just started writing the songs.
and it's weird because I mean, I started bands in the late 80s that had those same influences, like Nuclear Assault and Leeway and things like that. Which, by the way, Nuclear Assault, I feel like are a very underrated band. I thought they were great.
I saw them a couple weeks ago, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they're about to call it quits, or so they say.
Man,
but I had never gotten to see him. I just had missed opportunities, and I'm glad I got to finally see him one time.
I saw him back then. I might have seen him on the Game Over tour, I think. But man,
they did that whole album front to back.
So good.
Fest, it was in Philly, the Decibel Fest. So I got
God damn it.
Yeah, it was.
That's
it was
so good.
They're one of my favorite bands. So.
Oh, they're amazing. They're amazing. See, again, you and me. When Gitter told me about you guys in the first place, it was like, this is a band from Dallas. They sound like Leeway. And I heard riffs. You could definitely hear riffs. You're like, oh, and Leeway, again, also a underrated band. But, Riley, I think Riley, your frontman, RIP, the late, great Riley Gale, was definitely onto his own thing. And I think that was very discernible to you guys. And that was the thing that I was responding to when I saw your band. He was such a great frontman. And yeah, and it was amazing. And so taken with you guys. And then so like, even though I didn't know you, I was prideful, like, because I had been seeing your shirts around and I would see people and go, yeah, they're from Dallas and they're really good at what they do. It was, and then after getting to know you, definitely sort of feeling prideful about you guys. Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course, buddy.
I'm lucky to have been a part of it, and it's got me to where I am today. So
sure, totally. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So, where are you guys right now? For those that don't know, Power Trip lost their amazing frontman Riley Gale, and some time back. And where are you guys at? Where are you guys right now?
Well, we're still jamming together. Me and Chris, the drummer. We've been working on stuff, and yeah, I mean, all I can really say is that to expect something in the not so distant future.
All right.
I don't know exactly when, but
Right.
yeah, we're very proud of everything we've done. Still love writing songs. Still got a lot of chemistry between us, and
That's great.
like the way we've always done things is always been very collaborative, and we always spend a lot of time arranging, writing songs, and we feel really confident about that. We've only gotten better at that, so we're excited for what's next, and
That's awesome.
it's gonna be cool. We have a lot of pride in everything we've done. Where, like I said before, and we've taken the time to really think about how to do all this stuff and what makes the most sense and what's best for us, what's best for everybody. And anything we do is gonna have involved a lot of thought and attention to detail. And we're very prideful. We're not going to do anything that's doesn't have a lot of I don't know what the word would be. It's genuine. We're not doing things to just to get to do it for selfish reasons. We want to do it because we want to play for all the fans all over the world, and people that maybe people that had never gotten to see us, people that just found out about the band. There's just a lot left. There's a lot left out there. A lot of great songs that are in the tank, and we want to keep it rolling. So that's all I can say right now.
That's great news, and I'm sure a lot of people will be so thrilled to hear that. And as is evidenced, you guys could have easily just found somebody to replace Riley. Another band probably would have been like, "Oh wow, everything's happening for us right now." We're at the top. People love our band. We're doing all this stuff. We got all these tours, and just found whoever to replace Riley and kept going and sort of. And you guys really took your time. You didn't know what the future of your band was going to be like. You didn't know if you were going to continue, and you really took the time to find, a way forward and a path forward. And I think that's a true testament to what you just said, that everything is with heart and everything is collected and calmed and rationally thought out and for the greater common good. And so I'm sure wherever you go and whatever you do next, it's just going to be amazing. And I can't wait to hear it, my friend.
Yeah,
buddy.
I appreciate that. Like I said, we would never, the way we've always carried ourselves as a band, and every decision we've made, every riff we've written, every song, we always approach it the same way, so It's like, and that's how the band's always been, it wasn't just one person making all the decisions and doing everything. So, when it came to, what should we do? We know we still are very capable of stuff and capable of doing awesome things that I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy. So it's like, we only do it if it made sense and if it was the right thing. And I think we've given ourselves enough time to do everything the right way. So
right.
I think at the end of the day, people I think are going to be really excited and enjoy what's coming.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. In addition to that, you've also been busy with starting some another project called Fugitive, and give me a little bit of that.
Yeah, so that has been really cool. It's like I really just want to start another project to keep writing because I found myself not really playing guitar so much when I had finished writing a lot of this stuff that was like I finished about a year ago, and
right.
I was, well, I don't really need to keep writing more songs in that vein because that hasn't even really materialized yet. So I started writing. I was basically, what happened is I was gonna fill in for this band. It did actually happen. It was a close call, but regardless, it got me playing in a lower tuning. I tuned my guitar down a step and sound that crazy, but for me, I've always played in standard pretty much. So doing that, I'm a little hesitant to tune down. I'm not really into down tuning. I like plenty of records that are tuned down, but I was just, for my own sake, I was like, I wouldn't have had a reason to do that unless I, not forced, but like was pushed into doing that. And then I started doing it. I was like, this is different. I can write stuff that I usually write and it sounds a little different. I can explore some different avenues, like, maybe dive deeper into the, I don't know how to say, like the more loose, filthy stuff that I'm into, maybe like the sounds and the discharge and the battery and like the repulsion type stuff that maybe, stuff that I can't really bring into the power trip stuff as much. Obviously the influence is there, but it's like, more of like the riff style and everything,
Right.
and being able to
Right.
loosen a little bit when you're in a lower tuning. So, and even like the song speeds, like writing stuff that's a little more rocking, like more in the Motorhead,
Sure.
tempo. So it's,
DB.
yeah, DVD stuff that's like there's more, room to move around. Power Shift stuff just keeps getting faster and faster. It's always
Right.
very tight and fast, and it's like you don't have as much room to groove around like that. So, anyways, yeah, I started writing some stuff, and it was coming really easy to me because I think it's because of all the stuff I had just written. It was like I had to kind of break through this writer's block that I'd had for years.
Sure.
So maybe, I mean, it was a little before COVID, but I don't know. I finally came back around. I feel like it's coming a lot easier, and
That's great.
it felt really good. And I just was like, I have some friends around town. I wanted to do something to connect with them and to go back to the old days of like when you first start a band and you get to have band practices
Yep.
semi-regularly and go eat burgers together and just hang out. Like I miss those days, like
Me too.
it's great being in a band that's reached a level where you can, be more spread out and fly places and all that. But there's, I miss the old days of the camaraderie of all that. And, like you build bonds and relationships with your friends and your bandmates. When you're in a band with someone, it's a stronger bond than you can ever make just being friends.
Right.
Like I was friends with all these guys, but we started making music together and doing all that, and it's just like, you come a lot closer, and it's like it totally it's like you get another set of brothers. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
for sure. And
it's been really fun. There's a lot of like respect, and we're just having fun. Like everybody's really enjoying it. So yeah.
well, and you share a mutual friend, Andy Messer, who plays bass for you. Shout out to Andy if he's listening. He better be listening. He plays in my other project, Dracula's, and Andy's just a wonderful guy, great player. And actually, he's going to be touring with my brother's band, the Toadies,
Yeah.
this fall. So Andy's a busy guy. But I've heard the stuff, and it's amazing. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, he's awesome. I've known him for probably 15, 16 years at this point. So
Yeah.
I was, I've always been around him, and he's just kind of like I was saying earlier, he's like a lifer. He's always playing.
For sure.
Bands.
For sure.
Very, very humble guy. I had to remind him that he's a veteran and he's, great player and all that. And he should have all the confidence in the world, when
Yeah.
the band that he plays in. But he's a humble guy, and I appreciate that. I like guys like that. But
Sure.
he's a ripper, and he's just excited. It's fun to play with guys that are just excited. It's not like it's new to him, but I think
Right.
we're all playing a different kind of music, different songs. We're playing with different guys, so I like it when everybody has a good attitude and it's just excited to do whatever, whether that's play a show down the street or go to another state. It's like it's fun for me. It's almost like it's new for me too. I've played a show in it's been like 2.5 years. So
Yeah, I mean, dude,
I'm eager just to play a show down the street. So
yeah,
he's been awesome. It's been fun getting to play with him.
And unfortunately, everybody took a break during COVID, but you guys, it was more than that. It was more than just COVID. So it's amazing for you to be getting back out there. I can't wait to see you. So to gear shift just a little bit, I've always ribbed you a bit that you're a guy in a metal band. And for people that are listening to this that might not know, a predominant metal guitar is an Ibanez. That is the brand. And your name is Blake Ibanez, yet you play Jackson guitars, and now Gibson. I saw this. We're going to talk about your Gibson V in a second, but have you ever tried out Ibanez guitars to see if maybe you'd like them?
Yeah, I'm never gonna live that down. It's funny, like
I mean your last name would be on the headstock.
I always noticed it when when I would go to Guitar Center and stuff. It was just like every time at the register, it was like that scene in Office Space where they see his name is Michael Bull. People get the little like giggles going, It's like it's always like that, even when I'm checking out a guitar. Oh my god! And yeah, I mean, and especially now that my name is getting out there, I think in the media a little bit more with the things I'm doing. It never fails every time. If I don't have an Ibanez guitar in my hands in the picture, it comes out. But I actually I've had a couple of them. I think my first electric guitar was an Ibanez. So I had like a
See,
RG,
there you go.
starter RG, and I mean, I like them. There's just not one of their guitars that I've had to have. I guess
Sure.
you could say I started, I started playing Jacksons because that was, you know, Kirk Hammett and Phil Demmel and all these guys from the '80s that I like were playing Jacksons. So I was playing them. I still play Jacksons.
Yeah.
I just have different guitars for different things, like
Sure.
especially now I'm in different tunings in other bands. That's like, I have my Rhodes, which is really good live. It's really light and I can just wreck it. It's got a Floyd on it and it's really fun. I have a soloist, which is more balanced and it's heavier, so that's good for sitting down and recording or playing leads. I have, and then yeah, I got some Gibsons now, which I just, one day I was like, I want a Les Paul because some of my favorite players play Les Pauls since forever. Like especially for leads, like it has a really good balance, it has a really good neck. So I got that, and I can't stop playing it. And then
They're fun.
I got that Gibson V recently, which is just has a Kaler on it, which is a whole new frontier for me. But it's plays like a dream, and it's just fun trying new guitars.
What's funny is that guitar, the one you're talking about now. It's what year was it? Yours is 85 or an 86?
I think it's an 85.
85.
Yeah.
So I had an 84, and it is the art for this podcast. If you go to iTunes and if you go to any it's me at 15 holding that V that you have, except yours is red with black hardwood. Mine was black with gold hardwood, but it's got the Kaler, all that shit. And of course I got rid of it for something else. But anyway, that was also the issue of
you got plenty. You probably have so many you don't even remember.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous, man. It's so dumb. But that was when I was like that age. I had a Bad Brain shirt on that. I have a Bad Brain shirt on that picture. That was the age where I was getting, Nuclear Assault, Game Over, and it, you mentioned Phil Demmel. That Violence Eternal Nightmare record was my favorite record of all time. I mean, I wore out like 3 cassettes of that. I actually just got to see them play the other day. Yeah, it was great. Anyway, so now using some Gibsons, and that makes me proud because I'm a Gibson guy through and through. So that's fun.
I love them. I'm still a Jackson guy. I'm gonna always play those, but I it's fun playing old guitars. I feel like everything I play now is old.
That's good.
Like have an old rig where it's like that my head's from '86.
And what is that? What is your head? Yeah.
It's a 2203. It's a JCM800.
Oh, it's great.
2203. It's from '86, I think. I've had that for probably about 6 or 7 years. I've had it.
And you guys do things the classic way. Like you do the 800 with a distortion pedal in front of it, like, Hetfield and all the original guys, Anthrax. I know with Scotty, and it was 800s with a TC Electronics distortion booster in front of that.
I have that same pedal that he always talks about.
Is that the one you use? Let's see it. Let's see it, Blake. Yep, that's the one. Is that what you use in your main tone?
No. I haven't really used this on anything yet. I've played with it a little bit. I'm going to play with it more. It has a different power supply and it has more buttons and knobs on it. It's like volume, bass. It's a noise suppressor, boost, distortion. So I just haven't really gotten to mess with it a whole lot. I'm a Tube Screamer guy. I just love the way it sounds and it's so simple.
I love that about you. That's the classic way.
Yeah, it just stays on the board. I pretty much just do that in the 800, and for me, that 800 was a game changer for me because I think it has to. I mean, anybody can play an 800, but I think when I was younger, it was like when you first start playing them, it definitely exposes all the things that you didn't realize you were doing wrong when you were playing a higher gain head or something. So it really exposes the way you play. Every little thing about how you play comes out, and that can either be really good or bad. It can be challenging, but that's what I love about it. It really reflects the player and the guitar. Really everything about what you're doing, I feel like comes out. Like 2 people play an 800, obviously with two different guitars or even two different players, it just sounds completely different. Like all the way to the way you pick or you strum and how hard you're playing
Right.
totally comes out with that head. And yeah, like, so going back to when I was younger, I think I'd played an 800 a couple of times at a gig, like maybe borrowed one or something. And I was like, oh, this is kind of scary because it was so naked's not the word, but it was just like it was like taking something off, like I thought it was so perfect. And then you realize that you still have things you can work on. And then just over the years playing it, it's an honest head, but it's just sounds so good. And when you can really nail things with that head, it's just like you can't get that sound anywhere else. It's a classic sound, and that's why everybody, from everything from rock to metal to, it's just you can use it for anything.
Well, let me just say right there, you guys are a younger band, you're younger guys, and I think nowadays younger metal bands, they're using Kemper profilers or fractal profilers or the ubiquitous PV 5150 or 6505, the EVH 5150, because those are the craziest high gain amps, or even diesels or something like that. And you guys are using 800s from the 80s with tube screamers in front of them, just like the real deal. And I just love that. Are you diming out your tube screamer, or where are you setting that at?
No, it's like a 666.
Ah, the setting of the beast.
Yeah, the setting of the beast.
Yeah.
It just sounds. I think it just sounds best. Like, it's easy to remember.
It's easy to remember. I just would love if it was like 668, 669.
Well, no. Sometimes I'll go like. Sometimes I'll probably go to like an 8 on the drive if I need a little bit more.
Yeah, why not? Fuck it.
Yeah, so maybe 866, but 666 is the starting point.
And then you can just turn it off for like quote unquote clean tone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you do that.
If you do that, but you don't. Yeah.
I mean, I've always even in the studio, I probably was a little lower than 666. I think pretty low because, you always want to. I mean, when I'm in the studio, you always dream about doing this straight in thing. Like Guns N' Roses or even Slayer. I'm pretty sure they didn't use any distortion pedals. I could be mistaken, but I want to say I've read or heard that there was like this thing that, with the Rick Rubin, they were trying to do the Back in Black thing, which obviously everybody wants to do that. But I want to say they just went straight into the amp. So maybe they used the preamps, what they were plugged into, or they did something, through the board or some outboard gear instead of pedals. Because when you get an amp to break up really loud and everything, and you push it, you can get some natural distortion that way. But it just, well, then it's like really hard. You got nothing to fall back on, Like,
jeez, man. I mean,
you have to be just completely flawless, but it does it less distortion and all that. Really, it makes it just sound better.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because the Rain and Blood record, and there's the Rick Rubin stuff with Slayer. I mean, those guitars are fairly clean, and I think it adds to the overall sort of angst in that record, and how creepy it almost sounds. It always sounded like being in hell to me, and there's something so sort of claustrophobic about their guitar sound. It's so, you know what I mean? There's no glue in there. There's no distortion to get them to the.
Definitely got some mids going on.
Yeah.
It's stuff that it's like they were the polar opposite of everything else happening at the time. Like everybody else, I feel like is always scooping out the mids, which I mean, we all like. I like less mids sometimes, sometimes too, but reverb, all that stuff. I mean, there's a little bit of reverb in areas on those Slayer records, but overall, the vibe is like, we're not doing that. We're gonna be right in your face up front, just eating your ass. That's like a little different than what was going on. You can tell when you listen to it, when just thinking about all the other stuff around that time. So it's harder to pull it off. It takes a more. You gotta just attention to detail, and everyone's gotta be playing really good. I mean, they did all that stuff to tape.
Yeah, dude. Tell me about it.
That just goes to show how great they were, and how much time they spent in the studio just making sure it was perfect. They really, it's really impressive.
I think Rain and Blood is one of those perfect records, in my opinion. Back to Fugitive. What's that?
You and everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. Like,
Yeah.
there's not a bad song. There's not a fast forward song on it. That and At the Gate, Slaughter of the Soul. Um, back to Fugitive a bit. It's funny you say the thing about just dropping to E flat. How that helped you sort of get creative and pull some riffs out. Was it E
Yeah.
flat, D sharp? Was it
D,
just one?
it was just D standard. So it was
Oh,
just a
it's just
full.
D standard. I say like D G C F A D. Okay. Well, even that, your
Yeah.
chord shapes are still the same. Essentially, you're not dropping anything. You're not dropping to drop C or drop D or whatever. But how that could spur you, and it's funny. I got one of those Gretsch baritone guitars for Christmas, and I can't pick that thing up without writing a riff. It's in B, and you would you wouldn't think that would be such a creative tool, but it really does take you out of it. It really does. You're hearing things in such a different way than what you've sort of programmed your brain to respond to. And so that's true. And it's funny. I when I heard of Fugitive, I was like, oh, this is Blake doing some deeper stuff. Some lower
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's not super low tune. I mean, like I said,
Sure.
I'm pretty picky when it comes to lower tune stuff. I feel like at some point, the lower you go, the riffs kind of disappear. I mean, it's
Sure.
like
I agree.
at some point everything kind of sounds the same, and it just all sounds like the same notes. It's like there's less of an emphasis. I mean, like I said, when you go down to D, it lets you loosen up a little bit. I feel like when you go low, even lower than that, there's so much room to be loose that there's not like it doesn't the picking the accuracy doesn't matter as much. Like, I don't. It's
Sure.
like a where it's
I
just
agree. I can see
lose
that.
interest lower. There's certain records I like that are pretty low tuned. I would say C sharp is probably the lowest that I generally dig. Like
Right.
Sacrilege and Razor and all the death metal stuff.
Sure.
I like C sharp standard a lot. But D was cool because it was like we have one EP that we did Power Trip in E flat, which is like the Slayer tuning, and it was like
So
early on.
rise against tuning.
Yeah, and it's a good tuning, but I think I was like, well, there's not that big of a difference between E flat and E in terms of like writing new stuff.
Right, for sure.
I was like, I got to go a little bit lower, and like I said, I was already playing in that tuning, just learning this other band songs, and I was just like, once I started playing it, there was trying different things that were working. And E is a good tuning to test out riffs. It's like, hey, if it sounds good in E, it's probably a good riff. But like,
right,
we say that like there are certain riffs that just sound better in D or a lower tuning. It's not. It doesn't mean that they won't sound good in E. It's just like just sounds better. So like there stuff I'm writing for Fugitive. It's like you could play it in Power Trip in E, and it would be fine. But it just sounds a little darker and cooler. It sounds a little better.
Yeah.
Like I said, a little more room to kind of get loose and get a little more sleazy and stuff like that. Get that little like rock and roll thing going, and we it definitely has a more rockin' feel to it. Like the fast songs, we coined it thrash and roll because it's thrash, but it's like it's got this sleaze element, and that kind of comes from the whole Entombed thing they were doing. The death
for sure.
And there's I'm really inspired by Nick Anderson and all the Entombed stuff, and like what he's done with Helicopters, and his band Death Breath is like a huge influence on Power Trip and all the stuff I've done, because it's kind of like we were talking about. It's like guys that really have their influences in the right places. Like they're into rock and roll, they're into rock, they're into metal and like the roots of metal and all that stuff. But then they approach like the aggressive thing with this punk attitude, like they did like GBH and Discharge and Battery covers on one record, and it was like, and they were kind of a death metal band, but they're playing through like JMPs and Les Pauls. So it was like, it's like everything I like, and that those are the instincts that I like to think that I have too, So like that's kind of where I was coming from on this Fugitive thing too. Is like the way that they approached, they were playing more of like a death metal, but it's like it's totally coming from Venom and Battery and like all the really early stuff, like proto thrash.
Right.
But we have the benefit of understanding all these years of music after it already happened, and then we can kind of mix in everything we want. So like there's still
do your own thing
all
with
the
it.
had in Power Trip are still in there. Sepultura, Obituary, Razor, and Cro-Mags and all that stuff. It's still all in there, like all my normal influences, but it's like I've crossed it over with some other stuff, and I think it. I like connecting the dots between all that stuff.
Sure. That Death Breath stuff is great. Also it's so good. A few points when I see a death metal or a thrash metal or a metal band using Gibson and Marshall, for some reason my respect level goes up. It just does. Like I want my Metallica playing Gibson Flying V's.
You're a purist.
What's that? I'm a purist. Yeah. And that goes back to the anomaly of Power Trip, is that you guys play in E standard through Marshalls and Tube Screamers, and this is music that was 20 years before you guys were doing this, and I just love it, man. I can't say enough about it. I know I've bring it up a lot, but it's endlessly impressive to me.
Thank you.
Of course, Patty. Well, man, I won't take up too much of your time. I would tell everybody listening to stay tuned to Power Trip and see what those guys have coming up. Also, check out your new band, Fugitive, because it's great. It has some great folks in it. And anything that Blake Ibanez does, just check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, the Fugitive stuff should be out in the next couple weeks, and we're mixing it this week. So that'll, as soon as it gets mixed and mastered, we'll pretty much be able to throw it up. Probably
awesome.
Throw a single down and then put it all out. It's like 5-song EP, and then more stuff to come, more announcements to come. So we're just getting started over here. I got a lot of many years of music.
Oh, of course you do. You're we smell our own. You're a guy that's driven, and this is all you do, and it's impressive. That's why we've
it's all I really care about.
Yeah, it's me too. I mean, it's why we've always had a lot to talk about. Well, anyway, hey, thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and good luck out there, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I will see you out there, buddy. I mean, we'll be crisscrossing each other for years to come, I would imagine.
Sure.
Take care, man.